today. It's none other than, Cullen Bunn.
Hey guys, how are you?
Great. Talking to the great Cullen Bunn.
Yeah, Wizard of Oz over here. It's kind of got me star-shocked, like I said earlier. Let's see here. What you been up to, man?
Same as always. Just I'm always working. I got up early on my day off to talk to you guys.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it.
No, it's I'm glad to be here.
So what are you working on right now? What are you working on right now when you're not off?
So right now I'm working on a number of this past week especially has been a lot of creator-owned projects that I've been working on, some creator-owned books as well as working on some Valiant stuff.
So what you got going for Valiant?
Right now, the only thing that I can talk about is I have a book coming out in October called Roku. It's a 4-issue miniseries starring this villain from the Ninjak universe. So I've been working on that this week, and like I said, I think the first issue of that comes out in October.
Okay, so coming up pretty soon then.
Yeah.
All right.
And then, like I said, I've got some other things going on at Valiant, but nothing that I'm allowed to talk about. They'll mark me for death if I reveal the secrets.
Is that kind of hard? Because they put out like solicits like so far ahead now that you're like, oh wait, is it time? Can I speak about such and such now? Or is it hard?
Valiant. Well, all comic publishers, put out their the solicits and announcements pretty far in advance. They usually keep me on, keep me pretty up to date on when those are going on. The interesting thing about Valiant that's both good and speaks to the thing you just asked me is they work so far ahead on their projects. It's not like Marvel, where I might be working on a book that gets announced the week I start writing it, or the week they call me and say, hey, we need this book.
Uh-huh.
Valiant works months and months, and in some cases years in advance to make sure they've got all their ducks in a row and everything ready to go.
That's really impressive, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it's the way things should always be, but unfortunately, the way things work and the way comics are produced, it's not often the case. But they have they definitely, that's the way they try to do things.
All right. Well, that really speaks testament to their style then. I mean, it's working for them, and it gets everyone all their ducks in a row.
Yeah, for sure.
And I know Ray wanted to ask, because he's a big Valiant fan, about what are your thoughts on the potential to translate some of that stuff to the big screen and stuff, and TV shows, movies, and stuff?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I think there's tons of opportunity there. I mean, obviously the Bloodshot movie's coming out, and that's, I can't remember when that's coming out, but I know it's coming out at some point soon. But there's so many characters that I think just have such a have just a huge potential to be TV characters, or to carry a TV show or a movie franchise. So yeah, I think it could be really cool. I think it's interesting because every time these characters come into a cinematic franchise, they kind of have to be reinvented a little bit. But it's interesting only because say a Marvel character or a DC character, there's so much backstory and so much material to choose from. You have to pick and choose what goes into those iterations. But with the Valiant characters, I mean, and they've been around for a while now. What in this iteration, probably 7 or 8 years, I guess. But they're still, to me, very much on the ground floor, and there's still a lot of uncharted territory and wet paint, which I think is pretty exciting.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering about that because like I'm kind of a huge Shadow Man fan, and it's like I'm still going through the back issues, and I was just wondering like if that's ever going to come to a head with the cinematic universe, they'd have to change a lot.
Well, things that work in comics don't always work in TV or movies. I mean, and I've never been one to be really concerned with the changes that have to be made, because it kind of keeps it, to me, it keeps it interesting and fresh. I want to be able to tell that I'm watching an adaptation of whatever the character or comic is. I don't want it to be so different that I can't even identify that it was based on the comic. But I'm fine with the changes that have to be made to make it work for that for the different audience and everything. And I can see it as it gives me an opportunity for something to surprise me a little bit.
Right, that makes sense. I can't make it work exactly. I mean, that's decades of back information and lore.
Right.
Plus, don't you want to surprise people? If it could be kind of boring if everyone knew exactly where everything was going.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, if you know if it's a 1-to-1 remake, or adaptation, you're gonna know exactly everything's going along. It can be cool to see it, but I don't know that it's gonna wow me the same way.
Yeah. On a similar topic, big announcement the other day. Moon Knight is going to be an actual show out there on Disney Plus. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it'll be. I'm excited about it. We'll see. We'll see what they do with it. It's he's a character that can go in so many different directions. But I don't think they announced too much in terms of direction or tone. But it could be pretty cool. I mean, to me, he's one of the Marvel characters that would work best as a as a TV show.
I could see that. And they didn't really announce anything at all. All we've really been able to piece together is, speculations. The man on the street has his own, Tommy Cowell. We were talking about that a little bit ago, but
right. Yeah, no, I think it could be really cool. I would like to see something with a little bit of a darker tone, but maybe even verging into some horror elements. But yeah, we'll see.
Do you think they would do a lot of that on Disney Plus though? Because I thought they had Hulu for some of their darker stuff, like Ghost Rider and stuff. So if they're going to do it on Disney Plus, do you think they're going to do like straight up more superhero stuff?
Yeah, they might. It's that's a good point. Yeah, I don't know what it's going to look like. I think there's room for them to do it on Disney Plus and not be so dark and horrifying that it alienates the viewers. But you might be right. They may veer more into just straight hero stuff. Who knows though? I mean, I think that maybe it'll be a little closer to what what he was when he like in the first Moon Knight comic series.
Back in Volume 1 when it was Doug Mensch and Bill working on the art.
It could easily go into mercenary territory or playing up sort of the just the three sort of facets of Mark Spector. But yeah, I'm not sure, man. I'm interested in see what they do with it.
Like what really like when you did when you were writing the character and stuff, what were some of your favorite things about the, what you got to play with, and what you got to explore about the character?
Well, I didn't get to write him long enough. I wrote 5 issues of the Moon Knight series, and that was all I was hired for. I mean, when I took that first issue, they said you're gonna write 5 issues, and then we're kind of doing Moon Knight in an anthology sort of mode where every 5 issues we change creative team, which I kind of hate, but that's fine. It was my chance to write Moon Knight, and I've said this elsewhere. When I first had a face-to-face meeting with Marvel editors, the first thing I pitched to them was a Moon Knight series.
Really?
Yeah, and that was a long time ago. And it didn't happen because they had, little did I know, they already had a new Moon Knight series planned. But yeah, the very first thing I pitched to Marvel was a Moon Knight series, and you have to understand, I came from, the first time I read a Moon Knight story, he was fighting a werewolf, and to me that that was set the tone for what I wanted to see for Moon Knight, and so I pitched sort of a more supernatural, weird happening Moon Knight series back then. So when I got the chance to write Moon Knight, even for those 5 issues, that's kind of what I went back to.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, it was kind of its own origin. I mean, they've redone it so many times, but that was really where it stuck.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's obviously changed. He's changed quite a bit over the years, but I just remember reading that issue of Werewolf by Night. I mean, I read it so many times that the cover was falling off. So that's just where the character cemented for me early on, was in this sort of supernatural horror realm.
Well, that it kind of swings into your next Moon Knight work that's coming out soon, the Moon Knight annual, the whole Acts of Evil thing. This is probably the annual I'm most excited for, the Moon Knight one. He's facing Kang.
Yeah. So
was that your choice, or did they tell you had to use Kang?
They did not tell me I had to use Kang.
Okay.
What they came to me and said, "Hey, we have this annual series that we're doing, and we're doing matchups between heroes and villains that would not normally face each other." And I immediately thought, "Oh, you mean Acts of Vengeance?" It's what a great return to Acts of Vengeance. And I'm not sure that necessarily registered right off the bat, but I put together 15 different matchups and story ideas, and there were a lot in there that I really liked, and there were several featuring Moon Knight. There was Moon Knight meeting Morgan Le Fay, and there was, I can't remember the other one. The other Moon Knight, but there were Silver Surfer versus Sentinels, and there was Conan versus Arcade, and there was.
That would be great.
Yeah, that's the one I thought they would have gone with in a heartbeat. Even though I kind of think bringing Conan into the modern era is it's dumb. It's a fun kind of dumb.
Yeah.
So I still wanted to, I wanted to do. That's the one I really. That was honestly my number one pick. But always, for various reasons, those things, they just don't come together.
Do you think I mean, maybe it's just coincidence, but they picked Moon Knight because they knew something was coming, like a TV show?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's possible.
Because I mean, also in the Acts of Evil, you had a Miss Marvel annual, and I think She-Hulk's coming up this week, so.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. So I mean, it's possible. I'll be honest, the Kang Moon Knight one was one of my least favorite pitches, and not because of Moon Knight, but because I didn't want to do time travel. I pitched, and look, maybe I should have left it off the list, I guess, but I put it on there. I didn't want to do a time travel story, because I swore to myself years ago that I wouldn't write any more time travel books, and yet there we go. Let's do Moon Knight versus Kang. So when they called me and said this is the one we want to do, I was excited for the Moon Knight of it all, but the Kang of it all kind of really threw a big wrench, and it took a long time to figure that story out, and to do it in a way. It went through a lot of different iterations and a lot of different pitches. It doesn't look the way that it did when I first pitched the story because of things Marvel, story guidelines Marvel had and things they wanted to do or not do with the character. But yeah, I think it's going to be a fun book. Just it was, but if I'm being completely forthright, if I'd had my druthers, it wouldn't have been. Well, it might have been Moon Knight, but it wouldn't have been Kang. It's always funny to me when I pitch like a bunch of different stories, and I have what I think is my favorite, and I think the one that's going to be the home run, and then I have what I think is going to be the one that they pick least of all. This will be the one that nobody does. And of course that's always the one that someone picks. But yeah, and I really, and the other reason I thought Moon Knight and Kang would never happen, is because there's a lot of Kang's one of those characters that there's always a lot going on with. At Marvel, they've always got plans for Kang, and I just thought that maybe this would be something that conflicted with some of that, or they didn't want to play in that arena because they didn't want to, have anything that touched a character they had big plans for.
Do you think maybe Kang's gonna make his way to live action event here soon? Because I mean, they've already introduced time travel.
Yeah, I think at some point he will. He's a cool character, and he's one of the key, one of the main villains of in Marvel. So I think at some point, yes, Kang will show up. Who knows what that'll look like though.
So I just have to say this. It's been kind of bothering me for a bit. I know. I'm sure you've possibly seen the meme or something. So when it comes to Kang and Moon Knight, a guy who's infamous for ripping off faces, and Kang being a guy that only has armor everywhere but his face.
I think that mask is armored, right? Come on, that his mask has got a little armor on it.
I thought that blue thing was armor. So. Yeah,
it's sort of like Destro's mask. It just moves a lot, even though it's made of metal, it can move or something. I don't know. If you're asking me, does Moon Knight rip Kang's face off? I'm not going to answer that question.
Okay, that is perfectly fine. I'm just worried for Kang.
I was going to say you spoiled a plot point there.
But the interesting thing is with Kang and Moon Knight, Kang so outclasses Moon Knight, on a power scale.
Oh, no problem.
I mean, he's and that was a big challenge for this book as well. He is just so much more powerful than Moon Knight, and we'll see some of that obviously, and how how Moon Knight deals with it. But that was a big challenge for the issue, and I think that's why I probably put them on the list to begin with. Is I was like, haha, here's one that's that's such an odd matchup, because really Kang and Moon Knight shouldn't be facing each other. That should be a fight left for the Avengers. But I like that. That's the interesting thing about it. And also Kang offers us some. He affords us a look at some things that will be really what I think is the coolest part of the issue is that Kang. I think I think it's safe to say, look, there's a lot of time travel in this book, and you get to see some interesting things because of that.
I don't know how much you can spoil, but do we get to see various Moon Knight from different eras?
You see a lot of Moon Knights from different eras.
Oh,
Awesome. I've been wondering about that.
A lot. I mean, it's in fact, at one point, my editor had to say, "All right, Cullen, tone it down on the number of Moon Knights," and I was like, "Oh, come on."
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so you don't see as many as I would have wanted you to see, but you do see quite a few Moon Knights.
Interesting.
Yeah, at one point, this comic had not only a lot of Moon Knights, it had every version. You would see, at least for a panel or two, every version of Moon Knight's costume ever. So it would have been sort of a retrospective of what Moon Knight looked like from the beginning to now. Including the weird like adamantium armor Moon Knight, and that kind of, you've seen every version of Moon Knight at some point in the book. That's not in there now. I still wish it was, but at some point it does get a little weird and complicated when you're trying to do all those things. Although I still wish we had done it.
Well, I've talked to other writers before, like whether you're familiar with that. If you're familiar with your artist, do you like tweak your script to like reflect their strengths? You're like, oh, I want to see him, draw this, or
not usually. I usually write my scripts the same way from artist to artist. Even guys that I've worked with for going on 15 years.
So it doesn't matter.
I still write.
It doesn't matter
I still
who
write
it is.
Scripts the same way.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, if I'm talking to an artist and they say, and we're really digging in on a book from the ground floor, and they say, hey, these are some things I'd really love to draw or something like that. Sure, absolutely. Or if they tell me, this is let's try working on this with a classic Marvel style script, then yeah, I'll try that with them if that's what they want to do and that's how they want to work. But most of the time, especially with Marvel books, I don't know the artist or know who the artist is going to be until the script's already done. So I just write it. I try to have a lot of, obviously in comics, you have to have a lot of trust and faith in your collaborators. So yeah, I just write it the way I would normally write a script for anybody.
And are the fight scenes very specific or vague? Is it like, okay, he has to throw a right cross here, or is it just like you write fighty and you let the artist like do what they do?
In my scripts, my fight scenes are written panel by panel. I don't know that I get to super specifics on, like maybe back in the early days, I would actually call out specific martial arts moves, and I would send videos and pictures of those moves and things like that. But I don't do that anymore. I mean, it might say, Moon Knight throws a cross and punches Kang in the face and knocks his metal face mask off or whatever. But I don't, but it could also just be, these two are, in this panel, these two are fighting, they're choking each other, something like that. And then the artist can interpret that however they want to. If I have a very specific image in mind, I might try to describe it. But also all of my scripts, I pretty much start with a message to the artist that says, ignore this if it doesn't work visually. The artist is the expert when it comes to those visuals. But yeah, my scripts are semi-specific, I guess, but I leave a lot to interpretation as well.
So how was it working with Ibrahim Mustafa?
It was great. I mean, this is a tough issue. There's a lot going on the page. There's to tell this story in 30 pages, which is long for a comic. It was not long for this story. I mean, there's a lot of information to get across on the page. And when I wrote the script, I was a little worried about it. not I wasn't worried about Ibrahim. I was just worried that that I was asking any artist to do too much and convey too much information. But he's a pro, and it's really, his pages are really good looking. I don't know. They haven't released any preview pages of it, have they?
No, I don't think. I think the cover's the only thing
No.
I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a good looking, it's a good looking issue. And, and like I said, we're seeing a lot of different Moon Knights. So not only did he have to tell this story, he has to design a ton of Moon Knights, and so there was that. He had a lot on his shoulders with this one.
I got my trust in him. I'm looking at his stuff right now, and it looks really good.
Oh yeah, he's super talented. I mean, he is very talented.
I can't wait to get it. But Cullen, I mean, you're probably going to get some extra eyes on this thing, after the announcement. I think you're like the first Moon Knight book to be published after the announcement.
Well, maybe they'll hire me to write an ongoing Moon Knight series. That would be sweet.
Do you have do you have ideas already for, like, if they ask you to write an episode or something? Like the TV show, or even if you want to do the monthly book, do you have ideas already?
I have thoughts on a monthly book for sure. That things I'd like to do in a monthly book. I haven't thought on the TV show at all, only because chances are they already have a writing, the writer's room they want for that, and since I don't know the tone of the series or the direction of the series, it would all just be brainstorming possibly for naught, because who knows what they'll end up doing with that, with the character.
Yeah. Are those like your favorite characters to write, like the street level guys like Moon Knight, or I mean, you've done a ton of Deadpool stuff?
Not necessarily. I do like those street level stories, especially street level stories with a little bit of potential for weirdness and things like that in there. But I like everything. My favorite stories to write will lean more into darker stuff and horror elements. But there's joy to be found in all different kinds of stories, really.
But speaking of, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Chad.
Just on the topic of horror and whatnot, how about the absolute carnage that you were in on?
Yeah, it's an interesting series. I'm just doing the 3 issues of Absolute Carnage Scream, but it's nice to see them. It's nice to see Marvel taking a chance on some darker stories.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I've really fallen in love with Donny Cates' writing. Like, maybe not for Damnation and for what he did with Moon Knight there, but like, he just came out of the woodwork and smacked us with some really good stories.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got a lot of really cool ideas, and it's cool to see what Marvel's letting him do in those books.
Yeah. Have you been reading up on those, Phil?
Yeah, I've been reading some Absolute Carnage. I mean, it's awesome. It's so much, all the symbiotes, and I was like, oh, are they gonna be able to pull this off? And so far it seems like they've really been doing a great job.
Yeah, the story just like goes on and on. Null is back into what's it called, Silver Surfer Black.
Oh yeah.
And just that entire like mythos is just expanding rapidly. It's just a bit crazy. But back to Scream, like, what have been some of your favorite runs that you've been working with lately?
Well, it's tough. That question's always tough. I mean, always my favorite run's going to be one of my creator-owned books. I love the Marvel stuff, and when I was really able to dig into it, there's some of the Marvel runs I've done I've really enjoyed. but it's usually when I have a lot of time to spend with the characters. But yeah, there's nothing compares to a creator-owned book, and so when I think of my favorite books, it's going to be The Sixth Gun, or Harrow County, or Bone Parish, which wraps up in just a week or so. But they're going to be the books that I was able to tell my way without, uh, without a lot of changes being forced because of different events that are going on or different storylines that are being told elsewhere. There's always going to be the truest form in my mind is going to be the books that you get to tell your way.
Absolutely.
But I know I mentioned Deadpool before. I know for me, like if I was writing a Deadpool book, I'd be more intimidated than usual, just because you have to have the action, you have to have the story, but you have to have like humor and drops that, or you have to like have the humor and jokes that like hit a certain way, like a right way, and you don't want to seem forced, and you don't want to, something to not land. Is Deadpool a little more? I don't want to say intimidating, but
maybe at the beginning he was. When the first Deadpool book I did, well, Marvel tried me out early on a couple of Deadpool short stories, and so those were, that's the first Deadpool stuff I did. But then the first series I did was Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, and with all of that stuff, I really knew very little about Deadpool. I mean, I knew who the character was. I've seen him in comics. I've read issues with him in it, but I didn't follow that character I didn't love that character until I started really writing him with Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe. And yeah, there's some intimidation, I guess, but really that, can be with any big main character that people, a lot of people really love.
Yeah.
But I tried not to worry too much about the humor aspect of it. I'm not going to write a gonzo zany Deadpool because that's not first of all, it's not what I want to read. But I wanted to put enough humor in there that it was true to the character, but I also wanted to tell my version. And that's one of the things that I think is cool about, with every character, but with Deadpool in particular, every time a different writer takes the character, it goes into some different, it's a completely different interpretation of that character. And I think that's really cool. I think my Deadpool was always a little more, there was the humor was there, but I tried to lean more towards dark humor.
Yeah.
And my Deadpool was always a little less, there was, maybe there were a few issues here and there that had a lot of really weird, zany stuff in it. But I didn't want to really be this sort of gonzo humor book.
I really like when you inserted him in Marvel history, like with Deadpool's Secret Wars and stuff.
Yeah, that one was probably one of the okay, so there, and there's one that Deadpool's in this just ridiculous situation. But I still tried to write it, for the most part, pretty straight. There wasn't I didn't, I think the funny, the weirdness and funniness of that is that he's in Marvel Universe now. And then, yeah, so that's always a fun book because I get all these people saying, well, did it take place it's not, didn't take place in real continuity. I'm like, well, sure it did. As far as I'm concerned, it did. So, I don't care what, I don't know if there's a formal continuity, but I also don't care. Because I think nowadays, especially, readers are forming their own continuity with these characters. They're taking the things they like and that's what they see as continuity and as canon. And it happens a lot, I think, with characters who have multiple books. If let's say Batman, I remember talking to a reader who said, yeah, I don't really consider anything that's not in this series canon. Everything else is just non-canon. And I thought that was interesting because I think now, with all these different books to pick, to choose from, and all this history to choose from, I think it's interesting that readers are kind of developing their own continuity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. I mean, who cares? When I was a kid, it would have been blasphemy. What? I have to follow the official Marvel continuity. But as I've gotten older, and I think as readership has changed, yeah, who cares? I mean, if someone wants to ignore a certain story or consider one story canon that other people consider alternate reality, that's fine with me. It's all alternate reality.
I think there's a lot more fan interaction now with the internet and everything. So people throw up their theories, and I think a lot of people are like, "Hey, that's not that's a good idea."
Yeah, no, I think that, and that's, I think that's awesome. And yeah, I mean, it's going across. It goes into movies, it goes into books, it goes into comics. It's everything. People are kind of, developing their own theories and like I said, their own mythology around these characters, and I think that's really cool.
Well, that's kind of the nature of stories. They just of grow and turn into something either greater or just different.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. So we were talking about the Scream event. You want to plug any of your other projects that you have going on? And you were talking about wrapping up on what was it, Harrow County?
Well, Harrow County has it wrapped up. It's coming out in hardcover right now, and the last hardcover comes out in a few months. Bone Parish, the last issue is getting Bone Parish is getting ready to come out, the final issue. I have an Image book called Unearth that's coming out. I'm co-writing with Kyle Strom and is illustrated by the great Valdemar Rivas. That's the second issue's out now, and the third issue's on its way. And then I have a book from Dark Horse called Manor Black that is sort of a gothic soap opera that is the second issue. I think comes out this week. And then just like I said, a lot of other creator-owned books right now in the works.
That's really cool, though. I mean, I was actually wondering if I should ask you. It's like I had a question about, do you prefer to write character events or do you just like to do events? And then earlier you were talking about how, if you have to design it around certain things, like with someone else's idea, like you just answered that for me. You'd rather be able to tell the entire story.
Well, yeah, obviously for me, I'd always rather be able to tell the entire story. I mean, it's fun to play in those events, and try to find, find the story to tell that adds to it in some way. But it's a different kind of writing process because those kind of stories are almost always written in a room. It's much more like writing for TV, being in a writer's room for TV. So when those events come along, even the smaller events, like the ones I've written, like Monsters Unleashed and the Venomized and things like that, I'm brought into Marvel and I sit in a room and we break that story and tell that story together. So there's a lot of people going over the initial idea and kind of tearing it down and rebuilding it up and tearing it back down and rebuilding it up. And then I go and write it after all those discussions. And that's really the way those events work. And that's, it's a fun process, and it flexes different creative muscles. But yeah, I'm just a control freak enough that I'd rather just tell my own story.
Well, there's time and place for that, and it's been working for you.
Yeah, well, like I said, I mean, these stories, it all depends on the situation and the story. And there's obviously some really cool stuff. The Absolute Carnage stuff is really cool. so I don't want to sound like I'm talking down on the idea of event comics, because they when they work and they work well, they can be really cool, and that's sort of the joy of having a shared universe. All these different characters interacting in different ways under the umbrella of the same event. It's just, for me, like I said, if I'm going to be given a choice ever, I'm probably going to always choose my own stuff as my favorite, though.
But yeah, like we were saying, the Absolute Carnage is good, but I mean, just the effort that goes into one of those stories. I mean, is it just like how much goes into like talking to the other writers and be like, okay, well, I'm having Carnage do this in my book, or is this going to interfere with anything going on over here?
Well, there's always quite a bit of that, and I mean, this is obviously something that Donnie has been planning and working towards for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something he's been that he's had in the back of his mind over the course of numerous books. Even the Silver Surfer book. And yeah. So then there's always so if Carnage shows up in my book, I need to make sure that it plays well to what the overall plan for the character is. And there's almost always some sort of left hook, something that comes out of nowhere that changes everything. So I'll pitch my story and then find out, oh, well, you can't do that because Carnage turns into a flower in issue 2 or whatever. There's always some big change. So you have to be flexible, and you have to be willing to work with what's going on in the greater as part of the greater storyline. If you can't do that, then absolutely writing event tie-ins and event comics just isn't for you, because it can be you have to be ready to change things. As first of all, you have to be willing to work with ideas that you may not have been aware of until after you've already plotted out your story. But the main event itself can change during the writing process, and you have to be available and ready to make changes that work with that.
So basically, they give you a book and they say, okay, Carnage is at point A at the start of your book. You have to get him to point B. How you do that is up to you.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes that's exactly that it is. They'll say, this is where Carnage is at the beginning, and this is where we need him at the end. And then, and I see, so they send me all the outlines for, the main event and scripts for the issues that have been written and art for issues that have been written. And I just have to play within that arena. Yeah. And in fact, with Scream, that's exactly, I definitely gotta, in order to make this work with the main event, this is where your issue this is what has to happen at the end of your issue. This is where things need to be.
So you probably get a bunch of top secret stuff about it, like a lot of these storylines. Do you ever have people in your personal life or just at any event be like, hey, how's this thing going to end? And you're just like, I can't tell you.
I most of the time I know where these things are going and what, I mean, it's just the nature. If you're writing those books, they'll tell you as much as, sometimes they tell you a lot. Sometimes they tell you just enough that that you can tell your story. Mm-hmm. But usually I have a pretty good feeling of where the stories are going. And sometimes that's weird and frustrating. I remember, when Captain America became a Hydra agent and there was all this panic and anger around it. And I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, enjoy that not knowing what's going to happen and enjoy the frustration and the anger, because I knew where that story was going, because I sat in the room when Nick says, this is the next, this is the story, this is what's going to happen. The same with Dan Slott's Superior Spider-Man story. Oh. I sat down at dinner with him and he said, this is what's happening over the next 2 years of Spider-Man, blah, 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 blah. And he just, named everything that he had planned. and sometimes you hear people complaining about a storyline. I just want to, jump out and say, well, this is what's going to happen. So, so relax. But I can't do that. That takes away from, from the enjoyment of what's coming.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think my final question is, hey, Cullen, after the Moon Knight annual comes out, can I steal you for my podcast? And maybe we could talk about that issue and maybe get in depth on more Deadpool and just a bunch of other stuff.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Just reach out. We'll work it out.
I will contact you.
Awesome. Well, I can't think of anything. I think it's kind of just kind of in shock still. But yeah, anything you want to talk about? You're in the hot seat, Mr. Bunn.
Oh no, just I appreciate the support. Thank you guys. Check out that Moon Knight annual.
Definitely.
if you don't follow me on social media, Twitter's a great place to find me, and it's easy. It's just at Cullen Bunn. So follow me there, and you can talk to me about it. Tell me that I should have had Moon Knight rip off Kang's face, whatever you like. But let's I'm out there. So check, and if you haven't checked out some of my other work, please, it's super easy to find the different books I've done, and if you want a recommendation, hit me up on social media. I'll give you some recommendations.
Great.
Nice.
Well, thank you for sitting down with us. It's
been great. I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, thank you. It's been great. It was great.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Well, do you want to go ahead and sign us off?
Well, do we have to?
Do we have to? I think we have to.
Well, I thought we had to take a. Oh, what? I thought we had to take a break and do the business.
The business.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the break. And then Ray's gonna edit in some fancy, music from Deleter and yada yada.
Well, no, we have to mention this. No, we have to mention the business because the next phase is the new book review.
Why am I not seeing the book review?
Oh, is that at the bottom? The next phase. Do you want me to read? You want me to do it?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. I can't.
Okay, so we're back. All right, everyone. The next phase, the moon phase is going to be a first quarter moon, which means it's going to be a new comic review. And of course, it's going to be Acts of Evil Moon Knight Annual #1.
With guest Tommy Cowell.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be a great one to get in on.
Oh yeah, I'm sending in feedback. I know that.
Yeah, immediately. Like, I'm already going to be downloading on Comixology first night.
Oh yeah, it's already on my list at my comic shop. I'm like, oh, pull it. Yeah, I wasn't like just exaggerating for Colin. I was like, this is probably the Acts of Evil annual I've been looking forward to the most. So yeah, so I guess next episode, come back. Ray will be back, and Man on the Street, Tommy Cavell will be back.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Are we still recording on this part?
Yeah, at least on my end we are.
Okay.
Ray can do his magic.
Okay, I'm gonna have him go ahead and do the signing off of Mekanchu. Do the because now I'm just screwing things up.
Oh well, he has all the social media. You want me to do all that?
Yeah, I stopped recording now.
Okay, well I'm still going, so I told him I'd send him my copy too.
Okay.
All right, everyone. Remember, come back for Ray and the others. You can, but also follow ITK. You can always email them. Email your thoughts on that Moon Knight annual. itkmoonnight@gmail.com. Check out the website, intothenightpodcast.wordpress.com. Follow the Facebook page, facebook.com/ITKMoonnight. And follow the group at facebook.com groups ITK Moonnight. At ITK Moonnight on Twitter. Follow them on Instagram, Tumblr, and YouTube. Search for Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. And of course, as always, they're always asking for iTunes ratings. Please leave a review, preferably 5 stars. Hey, leave a 5-star on this episode. Help them cast a larger net into the podcasting world, because it allows other loonies to find them, which I think after the announcement, they're going to have plenty of new loonies. And you can hear them on all good podcatchers, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, etc., etc. All right. All right. Come back for Ray and everyone else. But until then, may Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night.